Welcome everybody, my name's Adam and this is Annie, and some of you will know us, some of our students. However, some of you obviously will not. We've decided to do this podcast for a number of reasons which we're going to go into in a minute, but please do bear in mind this is our first one. It may take us a little bit of time to kind of get into the flow of things, but hopefully it won't be too painful for you guys to listen to. And really the overall idea of this podcast is to be able to just pass across some information, education, in any way that we can to help as many people as we can. That's kind of the core reason that we want to do it. But before we get into all of that, let me do a quick introduction. So like I said, this is Annie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
So I work for Adam at Eclipse and I'm a aesthetic practitioner also.
Cool.
Yeah.
Normally she can't stop talking, so that was a very brief introduction. My name's Adam. I'm one of the owners at Eclipse School of Beauty and Aesthetics, and we at the school teach a variety of both beauty and also aesthetics. So from dermal fillers through to youthful injections, through to also things like Profilo and various other bits, as well as a whole chain of beauty training courses as well. And we've been teaching the dermal filler course now for, what, about a year?
Just over a year.
Something like that. And to be honest with you, the real reason that we added aesthetics to the training school rather than keeping it just beauty, which was the original idea, was that we went on a number of filler training courses ourselves, and they were what we found to be not adequate to what we really wanted. Mm-hmm. So they were very short in time. You were injecting very quickly, and when you left, you just found yourself wanting significant amounts more information, especially around safety and complications.
Hygiene as well, massively.
And hygiene. A lot of these sort of 1 to 2 day courses, you're in a room for maybe an hour having a conversation and maybe a PowerPoint, and then you're injecting. And I think that it puts people in a sort of immediately difficult situation because you're just left in a situation where you just want so much more information. You're maybe lacking confidence, and it really means that you're just off doing it on your own, and in a lot of cases with not very much post support as well. So the idea of the course that we've created is much longer in time. We actually spread the foundation course over 4 days, and the first 2 days of that is pure theory, complications, facial anatomy. We don't even begin to look at a needle until the 3rd day. So the idea was that we can have people walk away with much more confidence in their knowledge, much more confidence, especially in things like facial anatomy, safety, and like Annie said as well, and she's extremely hot on hygiene. So the course wasn't come about really initially as something that we wanted to do as a profit builder. It was really built to be something that would enable people to get into this industry, because I don't think it should be restricted, as I don't think any industry should be restricted, but come out the other side being safe, most importantly.
And ethical.
Yeah.
As well, for other people.
Yeah. And it was just really important to us to do that. So we came up with this course, and we've now taught over 100 students, of which the vast majority of them have been really successful.
Yeah.
And we've added in things like we've got a support group, which is very, very active. People asking questions and helping each other out all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, every single day.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, there's messages, whether it's concerns, complications, even if it's just, I've just done an amazing treatment, I want you guys to have a little look. What do you guys think? Anything like that. And like, without a doubt, it's every single day there's a message.
Yeah, and then some people ask for feedback on their work. Some people see things on the internet that they've got questions about. Some people see complications as well, and they want to know, how would we deal with that? How should we deal with that, etc., etc. We've got an emergency 24-hour hotline, and we also do free quarterly update meetings as well. And this isn't really meant to be a sales pitch. This is not going to be a sales focused podcast at all. This is literally going to be about purely trying to get across as much education as possible. But I wanted to just give a background as to where we've kind of come from and why we've got to this podcast part now. So it's very difficult for us to put out the information that we can to the masses without having them come to us. So the idea of this is to be able to try and get more education, more information to people in a non-restricted way. So there are a lot of medic kind of based podcasts, but then some of them are either spoken in a way that are not understandable for people that are fairly new to the industry.
Definitely.
It's fine for us to listen to it. We've been doing this a long time. Everything makes a lot of sense to us, but not necessarily for everyone else. And also to just give a platform as well to give our voices in this industry, which is heavily dominated by medics, even though the vast number of people who do this are actually non-medics.
It's 83%.
Is that
to
the
be
figure?
precise? Yeah, 83%. That was like 2 months ago.
Wow.
That was
so.
found.
I guess we don't know that 100%, but that was something that you've seen
It was
online.
on. It was on this doctor's website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's fairly accurate. I'm not too sure. But yeah, that's the kind of general idea where we're coming from, and we just really wanted to be able to add our knowledge to aestheticians all around the world, essentially, because we've learned a lot, obviously, in the years that we've been doing fillers and other types of aesthetic treatments ourselves, and more importantly, we've learned a lot more than that from training other people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And seeing the problems they have, the mistakes they make, the things they get right, the complications they have, and how someone from a non-medic background can actually deal with these situations.
And the more knowledge that we can give people from our own experiences, from our students' experiences, that will lessen the negative kind of conversations that
hopefully
non-medics have. Yeah.
Hopefully. And that is actually the point. So it's taken us a long time to get here.
Yeah.
But the real point of this is that we want to try and make non-medic aestheticians be in a position where they can be better, where they can better themselves with no bias towards them, and actually try and progress their career. Because at the moment, non-medic aestheticians have a bit of a bad rep.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, to be honest, they do deserve it.
Yeah, 100%.
There's far too many people going on one-day courses and injecting off the back of that and never ever progressing their knowledge ever again.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment I did my first course, and the same with you as well, we spend hours and hours and hours just discussing facial anatomy, discussing complications, going through real-life case studies that we've seen online. And I think there's probably not enough of that. A lot of people do that one-day course and they're off on the back of that. They never kind of look to improve their knowledge. They just start injecting.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see why people really struggle with the idea of that when medics are spending years and years and years learning about the basics and the foundations.
Yeah, of course.
So that's kind of what this is going to be about. Hopefully every week we're going to maybe come up with a different subject.
Yeah.
Of some description or multiple subjects. If you guys have got any feedback about that, you can send us messages on social media, or you can send us emails, or you can drop us messages in any way that you'd like to. We'll leave some kind of social media links in whatever format this goes out on in the description area below, and you can connect with us on there. So if there's anything that you would like to discuss, then definitely drop us a message and we'll try and include it in a future podcast. I'm not sure about the regularity of it. I think we'll probably aim for maybe one every month initially or something like that, so at least we can definitely stick to it.
Yeah, definitely.
The problem is when you try and do one a week, we're just never ever doing it.
I don't know. I'll cancel.
So we'll try and stick to around one a month. If we can do them more regularly than that, ideally maybe every 2 weeks, then we'll try.
Yeah, and we can see kind of what they want as well, what people that are watching it want, and what they kind of want to see.
Yeah. So that will be definitely the kind of structure that we'll take. And in fact, whilst we're talking about this whole subject of medics and non-medics, maybe it is a good time to chat about the elephant in the room, which is that, and the way that everything is kind of looked at by the medics and the reality of what the real situation is. So this is my personal take on this. Like I've said, there are way too many aestheticians who are going on very, very short, inadequate courses with no kind of knowledge requirement to that either. You know, they don't have to maybe study facial anatomy or anything like that beforehand. They don't have to understand a lot more of the kind of complexities around the kind of more sort of medical side of fillers outside of actually injecting into somebody's face. And there's also this problem where once people have been trained, they don't then go on to study after that. Yeah, they don't necessarily go on further training courses, more advanced training courses, and actually take their own time to watch videos, to listen to podcasts, to read books, and all those kind of things that I've literally obsessed over. Over the past few years. So I think that's where the majority of the problems come from. It's just people carrying out a treatment that can be potentially damaging in quite significant ways to someone else's either physical appearance, or actually even worse than that, it can obviously have significantly bad effects when you start talking about things like blindness,
of course,
or nerve damage and various other things. So I can understand where the medical background come from when they see people like that, but to discriminate against everybody based upon the few in any area of life is, in my opinion, always wrong. And to restrict people from doing something that is, by the government's word and the regulatory word, absolutely fine to do, based upon a bias, is not right, in my opinion. And the majority of people that want non-medics to not be able to practice from the medical background is purely based upon a financial situation. So if there were no non-medics doing it, and if we're saying it was, you know, way into the kind of 80%, they would have significantly more work. Medics also tend to charge significantly more than non-medics as well. So from their point of view, and I understand that from a financial point of view, they would be incredibly more well off than they are now. But if that's the case, and let's face it, that is the case in the majority of situations, they should just say that rather than all the other stuff. Because if you really had a problem with the education of an aesthetic practitioner, or you had a problem with their knowledge or anything like that, and you're from a medical background,
they should want to help.
They should want to help.
100%.
Surely everything that they do should be based around patient safety.
Yeah.
And if they've got
100%.
all this knowledge, why not help the people that need it the most? That makes no sense.
Yeah,
to me.
a lot of the medics actually contradict themselves in that regard, because they say about they want to help them, they want everyone to be safe, but when they do see a non-medic or they hear about a non-medic treatment, they're the first to slate them without even trying to reach out and contact that person or kind of share their own knowledge in a format where non-medics can reach it. Because a lot of these doctors or nurses or anyone like that have these formats like this, like a podcast or videos or like books for complications, etc. If you're a non-medic, you can't buy them.
No. So I recently signed up to videos recently, and they wouldn't allow me to because I was a non-medic. And I'm someone who literally obsesses over the knowledge of this industry and everything that goes around with it, from the very basics to the very higher levels. I've paid significant amounts of money to train with medics, to train with non-medics, to train with people who I like their work, etc., etc. And I'm constantly learning. I've spent thousands on books and various other things to progress. And I think if someone is that involved or that committed to it, then why should they not be able to get the help from those people who claim to want to make things safer? If you're a doctor or a nurse and you know for a fact that there are these thousands and thousands of non-medic aesthetic practitioners, why would you not want to help them become safer? It makes no sense to me. And the only thing it really seems to boil down to, as things most often do,
is money.
Yeah. And
but
like this is not going to
though,
be like a medic bashing thing either.
No, yeah.
We're just trying to talk honestly about like kind of how we see it.
Yeah.
And just because someone has a medical background doesn't make them a better aesthetic practitioner, because quite often the actual outcome is not as good as those from a beauty background, because those from a beauty background have much more understanding and awareness of like current fashion,
and what
current
makes someone
trends.
more like aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, essentially what makes someone more beautiful. That's what we're kind of always looking for. So I think that there's a problem there. but there's always this crossover between knowledge and like the best possible outcome, and safety and the best possible outcome. So we've trained nurses, we've trained paramedics, and there's absolutely no way on the planet that the people that we've spoken to who have come on our courses have more knowledge than us, and yet they did their 5-year degree.
Yeah, 100%.
Not in a million years.
Yeah.
And two of my best friends are doctors, and they're constantly asking me for guidance, for information, on not just how to do specific treatments from an injection point of view, but also from a theoretical point of view, for complications, facial anatomy especially. Constantly getting asked questions around that from people from a medic background. So it's like, just because you train in something for a significant amount of time, A, doesn't mean that you're good at it, and B, also doesn't mean that, again, you've carried on your training after that. You know, if you're doing a 5-year degree, how much of that time is spent on the most important thing to us, which is obviously facial anatomy? I'd like to know the exact figure for that. It's not a huge amount of time when you've also got to learn the whole rest of the body. You've also got to understand medicine, you know, symptoms, all these different kinds of things that we have to know a little bit of, but there's a whole rest of the body that they have to understand. So, and then if you trained to be a doctor several years ago, or even 10, 20, 15, 20 years ago, or a nurse, and you did your degree then, you know, how much have you then gone on to study facial anatomy, to study complications, to study all these different things? If you've just left that where it was, in the same way that we're discussing normal aesthetic practitioners, how much have you really developed during that time, your knowledge?
Yeah, and how much time do they actually put into the treatments themselves?
Yeah.
Because, like, for like myself and Adam, for example, nearly every day.
Yeah, every single day, multiple hours a day.
Yeah, we would do at least a treatment if we're not teaching, discussing about it, even if it's not just like a WhatsApp group conversation, like on one of our support chats, and like literally, like I said, doing the treatments.
Yeah, it's like I say, Annie and I are quite obsessed over it. So maybe we are different to a lot of the aesthetic practitioners out there, and maybe medics would be more comfortable with people who are that obsessed with it and that knowledgeable about it doing it, which is why, again, we come back to this podcast in the hope that we can spur on the non-medic aesthetic community to further develop themselves and become better and look better in the eyes of these people that think that they're so terrible.
Yeah, and like Adam did say earlier, this isn't like a bashing the medics, but because there are those people, there are those non-medics that have done those one-day courses, feel comfortable with what they've learned, go ahead, do these treatments, don't run into mistakes, which somehow seems like unrealistic, but don't want to further their knowledge, don't want to further their education, don't really care about the outcomes. But those people aren't just non-medics. There's medics that are also the exact same, that don't really have that aftercare, that support. They've got 100 other things to do. It's not really on the forefront of their mind. And that happens with medics and non-medics. But that's kind of what we're trying to put across, that it's not just non-medics where things go wrong. It's not just non-medics where there are complications. And non-medics like myself and Adam, we are obsessed with it, and we do know what to do if there is complications. We do know about VOs. We do know about all of the potential problems, and we would try our best to help as many non-medics as we can, like with our emergency VO group chat that we've also got, which, like we did say earlier, Adam runs a training school, I work for the training school, but it's not limited to that. It's anyone.
Yeah, our emergency WhatsApp group is for anybody, whether they've trained with us or not, because we just literally want to help. And we've built up a network throughout the country where people are in areas where they can help. So if that's something you want to be involved in, also let us know. I think something that's quite interesting when we're talking about this is one of our friends had a boob job, essentially, and it went horrifically wrong. Like, horrifically. Like, she's lost one of her nipples. I'm sure she won't mind us talking about it. And just yesterday she told us that the people that have been going, that have had problems in the same way, they've all started this WhatsApp group and they're all talking about it, and there's dozens of people.
Yeah.
Now, these people aren't just doctors, they're surgeons. They're the highest calibre.
Yeah.
And I don't ever hear medics slagging off these people that are quite literally butchering people's bodies.
Yeah.
And yet, when someone is doing something on the filler side of things, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of problems, but I do also understand their point of view. Sometimes when I'm watching Instagram videos of other aesthetic practitioners doing treatments in unhygienic environments with bad practices, with no regard whatsoever, really.
Oh yeah, we can be
people's.
horrified, can't we? With some of the things
sometimes
that we see.
it is almost makes you want to pass out. It's
Yeah,
so bad.
100%.
And that's not saying that we're any better than anybody else. It's just observations, and it's just basic rules of health, hygiene, and safety that are being avoided. And that I can understand when people see that from a medical background, they just think, oh my god, these people shouldn't be doing this. So I do get it, but at the same time, we've been on training courses with both doctors and nurses where their hygiene and their practices have been absolutely horrendous. Yeah. So it does flip both ways. I don't think there should be the bias.
No.
If it was illegal, then I would understand it. That would be a completely different situation. Even if it was regulated and you weren't allowed to do it, that would be another situation. But you are. And to have a bias against people when they're just trying to earn money in something that they love and are interested in...
And enjoy doing 100%.
...is incorrect. And to restrict information from them when you're meant to be someone whose prime responsibility is human care and safety, to me, is wrong as well. So who knows, maybe there's something that can be done off the back of this when potentially one of them sees this, where we can have a conversation with them openly.
I would love that for a future podcast.
Yeah, if there are any doctors or nurses out there that would love to debate this with me on a mature and adult level, then I would love to have that conversation. I'd be more than happy to be completely quizzed on anything that they would like to ask me in terms of my knowledge, and in also in terms of the backup infrastructure that we have as well, because a lot of the complaints from medics is that if there is a problem, you're not in a position to be able to necessarily deal with it adequately. So, for example, if someone has a vascular occlusion, obviously we're in a position, we're qualified, we're insured to be able to treat that with hyaluronidase.
Yeah.
But what then comes after that is the potential, if maybe it leads into necrosis, for example, and you're too late, that there's been damage done and they might need something like antibiotics, or they might need a treatment that is outside of the knowledge of even a very good non-aesthetic practitioner, because they haven't got the full medical background. However, that is why we work with medics who will work with us for prescribing, and also for those situations whereby we might need that extra help.
Yeah.
And I genuinely don't see the problem with them being able to help that. And the doctors and nurses that we work with are more than happy to work with us based upon our knowledge and
based upon their knowledge as well, and what they want to share with us to only help us, to help our students, to help everyone involved, the patient, everyone.
Yeah, and it's very easy for us with the backup that we've got to get someone a appointment with one of our medical partners, and they can then go in and they can get prescribed antibiotics or whatever it is that they may need that maybe is slightly outside our remit. I mean, we know the very basics when it gets to that level of medicine that we can help with treatments around cold sores pre and post, antibiotics in certain situations, various treatments, various other things that sit around that kind of more medical area. But yeah, of course, their knowledge is significantly better than ours when it comes to medicine. Of course
and we don't ever try and dispute that ever.
No, and that's why it is good to obviously have that backup. But then I understand that the medics would feel kind of negatively towards it, because a lot of people don't have that backup, they don't get it in place, and they're still happy to do the treatments regardless of having that kind of backup in place. So I definitely get to both sides of it, but I just think on an ethical level to try and prevent people doing something that is legal and also insurable, most importantly, and to try and stop people earning money in something they love and enjoy, and also to then not offer the extra information that you do to people that are non-medics,
Yeah.
to me seems very, very hypocritical, and I'd
Yeah.
love to, like I say, get someone on and talk to them about that. But I think that's the long and short of the kind of medic versus non-medic thing. I hope we've like put it across in just the way that we see it. Like we say, we're not here to bash. We work with loads of doctors and nurses.
Yeah.
We've trained them.
And we have really healthy relationships with all of our doctors,
so it's not
nurses.
like an anti-doctor thing.
No, not
definitely
at all.
not. I hope it hasn't come across like that. It's just literally how we see it. I hope it's come across as a kind of just unbiased, factual bit of information.
And if anyone has any questions regarding anything that we've said about medics and non-medics, then obviously in the link that we've given, email or social media, please ask us. Just because we've done this podcast and we spoke about it, we between myself and Adam, we could talk for hours on end.
Yeah.
So if there is any further questions regarding anything we've said, please contact one of us.
So this it's been a bit gloomy, hasn't it? Really.
I feel a bit sad.
Little bit gloomy, but I feel like it's always just the elephant in the room, and we should just get it out there first of all, because so much of why we're doing this wraps around that whole conversation. And what we'll do is in the next one we'll try and make it a lot more positive, a lot more fun.
Yeah, more upbeat.
And
but this is the reality of the situation, though. This is the reality of 2020, what's going on. So it isn't great, but the more we talk about it, the better it will be. The more conversations that people are willing to have, and literally just to reiterate, I'd love a medic to come and have a conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
A doctor or someone like that to come and we can have a little chat.
I'll tell you what we should end on. Let's talk about some of the subjects that we want to talk about in the future.
Yeah.
So you start and then I'll do one after you.
Yeah. I think we should go over true and false. So kind of some of the stigma that is around kind of fillers. We can do lip fillers.
Yeah.
Like the Russian lip.
Like the 1 mil will give you the hugest lips in the world.
Yeah, the Kim K lip with 1 mil.
Yeah. That's a good one. I, being geeky, would like to do one about facial anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone from the fun to the boring.
Yeah.
What else? Any other ideas?
I would like to do one about the perfect client, and we can talk about how we can make our client as comfortable and as reassured as possible, because obviously people who are watching this have a client base and they might have experienced I'm swollen, is this okay? I've just woken up, is this okay? My lips look like this, is this okay? Can I brush my teeth? Can I go on an aeroplane? So we can kind of have a little conversation about all of that.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about lip trends. Obviously, the Russian lip is such a massive thing. When people come on our calls, they're obsessed with learning the Russian lip, absolutely obsessed with it, without really understanding what the kind of negative sides of it are. Because although people may absolutely adore the final look, there's a lot of negatives that come with the Russian lip. There's significantly more damage. There's a lot more bruising, a lot more swelling, and a lot more technique as well. So I think that would be a good thing to talk about.
And the Russian lip is more kind of the outcome, really, isn't it? You can't.
Yeah.
It's not one size fits all, which a lot of people do assume.
And you can get such a similar result with so much less trauma. So we'll save that conversation for another day.
Yeah.
I would definitely like as well to talk about bruising and swelling and the differences between the types of bruising and how bruising affects swelling and all those different kinds of things as well. So you can much more easily diagnose a bruise over something more significant, because a lot of the time when people bruise really badly, and if you're doing something like a Russian lip, they really can bruise significantly. A lot of people confuse that significant amount of trauma with long-term problems like a VO, for example, or necrosis or something like that. So that would be a good thing to chat over as well, in terms of kind of helping people look at things and understand that.
Yeah.
And there's also as well, everyone is so focused on vascular occlusion as a complication, but there are a lot more complications than that people get all the time and they misdiagnose. So various different types of inflammatory things. There's things like lumps and bumps, simple
I was
things
gonna say, just
like that.
even
And
the
there's also
outcome.
aesthetic complications as well
Yeah.
as medical complications. So we'll definitely do some stuff around that. And then also, as we move along, we'd probably just like to maybe add in some conversations about new techniques that people can add into their portfolio and improve their profitability, improve their ability, and add to their portfolio of different techniques and different outcomes, as well as also talking about things like Profilo, Synikos and Profound, and how you can add these other treatments into your existing aesthetic portfolio to just kind of widen your portfolio.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about the different botoxes that we can talk about, or rather
What we can't talk about.
the different toxins. Sorry.
Yeah.
And also probably the different filler brands as well, because there's huge stigma around different types of filler brands. So yeah, I think we've got quite a few subjects that we can talk about in the future. I hope you enjoyed this today. Huge thank you to Annie for coming and doing this with me, and we will see you all in the next one.
Yeah, thank you guys.
See ya.